What's going on, ladies and gentlemen of Knucklehead Nation? I'm happy to once again have on the show for you Chris Cross right there on
Yes,
your
sir. What's up?
screen, looking clean as usual. What's going on, Chris?
Nothing much. Just getting off, back to the start of the week on a Monday, and looking forward to doing the show after some big fights on Saturday.
Oh man, Chris.
Yeah.
Well, before we continue, unfortunately, man, me and you were wrong as hell on our Stipe Miocic versus Francis
Ah,
Ngannou prediction, brother. What happened to us, man?
I mean, I don't know about wrong as hell. I mean, I did say if Stipe makes it past 1 2 rounds, he might win, but he didn't make it. He didn't
Yeah,
make it,
yeah. That's true. You did
obviously.
say that we did kind of, reinforce our bet with that one. The main topic though, Chris, that I wanted to talk about, and this is something I put on Facebook and I got opinions from many people, including your coach, the legendary Colin Oyama
Ooh,
out of Team Oyama.
okay.
I said, is Francis Ngannou the biggest puncher ever? I mean, Chris, this is something we got to talk about now because I have yet to see a human being who stands in front of Francis Ngannou and is able, to take more, than one or maybe a couple clean shots to the head, man. Have you ever seen anything like Francis Ngannou?
Me personally, no, definitely not. I think it speaks for itself. Like Dana was bragging before the fight. This dude has a world record for hardest punch. It's equivalent to the like a Ford
It's
Focus.
it's a Ford Escort going 30
Oh,
miles
okay.
per hour through a school zone is what it is, brother.
Oh my God. And if anybody is out there talking about, oh my God, it's just a Ford Escort, I will welcome you to stand in front of not even Francis. You know what I mean? Any heavyweight and just let him punch you in the face.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
you know, in MMA, Francis definitely got to hit the hardest. You know what I mean? He definitely hits the hardest.
Yeah,
You talk
yeah.
about all combat sports, maybe you throw Deontay Wilder in there, but yeah, Francis in MMA for sure.
I'm joking. Obviously, I'm joking about the school zone thing. But I wanted to follow that up with. I hope there's no children around when he's swinging his arms around.
Golly, that'd be bad news bears.
But
You saw
man,
what happened to Stipe.
oh
Yeah,
man,
Stipe hit the late. What's it called? I forgot what that dance was called.
the stanky leg. Yeah, he did the
But he had
stanky
Stipe
leg.
hitting the stanky leg. Imagine you get hit by a
Oh,
kid, man. It was dirty. But all it talks to. We were talking about what happens if Stipe comes in leaner and lighter. But I think that played a factor in it too. He's 30 pounds lighter than Francis. You
yeah.
could see the difference. So it was crazy. It was crazy, crazy.
And that's something we said in the prediction that we didn't like. Remember, we were like,
Yeah.
we thought he should come in big and healthy because we thought he'd be able to take more of a punch. He did
Yep.
the exact opposite. That's something me and you specifically, talked about, and we said, we thought he'd be able to take a bigger punch had he come in
Oh yeah.
heavier.
I think he took the first one. He took the first one that landed clean.
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, we could talk about it now. I think he got rocked, and then as he's backing up, he kind of cracked Francis, and I think he kind of thought he was safe for a second, like, oh, he's wobbled too, so maybe he's gonna back up.
Right, right,
But
right.
Francis threw that huge left hook, and oh my God, it was bad. It was bad. That and that's on the same level as our friend Overeem.
Oh,
They're
that
similar.
was
Oh my
well.
goodness.
I thought this one was bad for sure, but that Overeem one, I mean, I feel like I've never.
Whew.
I don't know how Overeem is still breathing and not eating out of a straw after getting hit
I
like
mean,
that,
yeah,
bro.
yeah, that was so crazy.
What I wanted to say was, what I saw, and it sounds like you saw the same thing, Chris, is, in the first round, I mean, I was actually surprised. I thought Stipe took a lot more shots from Ngannou than most people have, right? And he was able
Oh
to
yeah,
like get up off the ground while, Francis was on him and clocking him over and over again.
cracking him.
He also took a couple shots in that second round. He got dropped. When he got up, for me, when he got up from getting dropped, he landed that right hand. You mentioned he cracked Ngannou.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he landed that right hand clean, and I thought at that point his fighter instinct kind of took over, and he rushed in because I felt like maybe he thought he had Francis hurt. He
Yeah.
rushed in, and it was that short, beautiful left hook when he was wide open, rushing in carelessly that kind of ended the night for him.
Oh, 100. Yeah. I forgot about that in the first round. He's getting up with Francis on his back, which again, 30 pounds heavier in the way and
Right.
cracking. I mean, he was landing those shots while Stipe was getting up, and I was surprised. Like anybody else, I think you get hit with Francis's huge, fit hands as you're standing up like that. You don't get back up. And Stipe proved he's one tough dude. Even after he gets knocked out, he like got up. He wanted to stand up like immediately. I was like, "Hey, you got to sit down and relax and kind of come to." And he was trying to stand up, and it was crazy. It was so crazy, and it speaks to how tough Stipe is, but it also speaks to the power that Francis holds. And yeah, I don't know if you pay attention to Twitter, but Calm Francis, scariest heavyweight there is in the world, man.
Scariest man. Calm
Oh
Francis,
man,
scariest man on the planet. Listen, I said on social media, Chris, I said Francis Ngannou, I've never seen anyone with that sort of one-punch knockout power. Of course, I said in any combat sport. Now, I may be exaggerating, but it may be, but unless we got to see, Mike Tyson and Deontay Wilder and the rest of these guys with MMA gloves on, we'll never really know. But what we do know for sure is, I mean, at least in my opinion and from what I've seen, as far as MMA goes, I've never seen anything like this, Chris. I mean, if he lands clean on anyone, he's basically gotten everybody out of there. I mean, every single time.
yeah. I mean, the only comparison that you can compare him to, and he's still active, is my man, the Black Beast.
Derek Lewis, right? Right.
Derek Lewis puts people to sleep the same way. He'll lose the fight the whole round and connects. It's night's over for his opponent.
Yeah.
So I know there's talks about Francis and John Jones, which, oh my God, it depends on what Francis shows up. But Derek Lewis and Francis, I'd love to see that fight again because the first one, as you know,
it was a dud. Yeah, that was a dud.
Oh yeah, most boring fight in the history of MMA. But I'd love to see it again. Derek Lewis said he had a hurt back. Francis was coming off his loss and whatever that may be. And so them two again, I don't know. I go with Calm Francis. Calm Francis again, scariest dude in the UFC.
Chris, do you think, and I know some people may think I'm outlandish for this, right?
Okay.
But do you think Mike Tyson, Deontay Wilder, these kind of guys with the 4-ounce gloves on would be as devastating as Francis Ngannou? Because here's the reason I say that, right? Because even though they're wearing the boxing gloves, 10 ounces or whatnot, I've seen people eat punches from Deontay Wilder. I've seen people eat punches from Mike Tyson, and they've been beaten. And a lot more credit for me to Tyson's opponents because I think he has a much better resume than Wilder.
Yeah.
But at the same time, these guys aren't wearing 4-ounce gloves. So for me, it's still sort of mystery. And then I also think about, well, damn, Francis Ngannou, 83-inch reach. I mean, that's a lot of leverage. That's a lot of muscle on this guy,
Dude, yeah, you could see the size difference between them. Even when they're standing in the octagon right before the fight and Herb Dean's explaining the rules. I'm like, I told my brother-in-law, I was like, man, they don't even look like they're in the same weight class.
Yeah.
It's like a different weight class. But, again, credit to Stipe. He stood there like it looks unfazed. I mean, granted, it's too late to pull out now, but you can see usually in someone's demeanor, like, oh damn, it's going to be a long night. But Stipe stood there. He was cool, calm, collected. And I don't know if you saw it, but Stipe said today he kind of went away from his game plan, whatever that was, which I think was staying on the outside and kind of touching and getting him winded. And that eventually that cost him the fight. But, yeah, we'll never be able to see, I think, Deontay Wilder with those little gloves. But Deontay Wilder kind of swings from the hip, and I'd like to see what kind of power Francis can generate swinging from the hip like that. I mean, maybe against Rosenstruck. Rosenstruck's the closest we're going to get, but Tyson and Francis a little bit more technical, I think, in their striking, and I'd love to see what it looks like if Francis starts launching those things from his hip, see what kind of power he generates, because that's
Chris,
scary.
that was a short, sweet left hook that he
Oh,
that he
perfect.
caught Miocic with. It wasn't him cocking back and trying to level the guy. I mean, it just seemed like a
No,
nice, solid left hook. Not too much, distance on it, man.
yeah, I think again, that's calm Francis. I think that's a whole different fighter. It's a whole different fighter, and I just thought of it. It just came back to me. He threw a head kick that landed
Right,
on
right,
on Stipe.
right, right, right,
I mean, and we're talking about that. Like, what if he knocks out Stipe with a head kick? He landed it.
right.
You know what I mean? And he threw leg kicks. He showed he can wrestle. He defended Stipe's takedown. So, calm Francis, I cannot say this enough. Scariest man in the UFC. I mean, he's gonna be a problem for John Jones. He'll be a problem for John Jones.
Yeah, yeah. Chris, what happens to Stipe next, man? They call him the best heavyweight to ever do it. You know,
Yeah.
he's defended the
Yep.
title more than anyone, as far as I know, in that division.
Yep.
He's 1-1 with Ngannou. Does he get another crack at it? Is it too late for him? Does he ride off into the sunset? What's your opinion on Stipe, Chris?
Well, I think there's our opinion, right? And then there's what, Francis and Dana decides, because Francis in the post-fight interview said he's cool. He's good with that trilogy fight, you could say. He said, because Stipe had always said Francis won't be the champ until he leaves. Well, that's not true anymore. Francis said he doesn't want to do it. But, Stipe being Stipe, and we've seen him bounce back, I'm sure Stipe is going to be wanting that trilogy fight to get his belt back. But, that's ultimately up to Uncle Dana. And, Uncle Dana's about the money. The money fight is John Jones and Francis, if they can figure that out. So I think Stipe is going to be waiting in the wings, because we've seen, like we talked about it last podcast, George, Stipe is willing to sit out to get what he wants. So I think he's going to have a long break, kind of collect his thoughts. He's already said he's good. He's fine. He's going to take some time off. So during that time off, I'd love to see Francis and John, man. If they can get that done, please. July and August. Oh my
Well,
God.
it sounds like before I talk about that, big shout out to Cheddar323. He says, we in here,
He's
yo.
back, baby.
What's going on, Cheddar? Appreciate you being in here. Appreciate the people that are watching. Be sure to hit like, subscribe, the bell notification
Yes, sir.
icon next to it. Join Knucklehead Nation and the channel. And also shout out to our sponsor, Nueva Real Estate. And you could follow us at our Instagram handles right beneath our pretty faces. So what I wanted to say, Chris, was that, it looks like John Jones, is talking a talk. But from what I heard from Dana White's mouth in the post-fight press conference, it doesn't seem like I don't know. Dana White made me question, does this guy really want the fight? You know what I mean? What do you think's going on there? Do you think it's just some back and forth friction between Dana White and John Jones? Or do you think John really wants this fight? Because if I'm John Jones, man, that was a scary sight to behold, brother.
Oh, 100%. John Jones is John Jones for a reason, though.
Yeah.
He's the best of the best for a reason. And I think Daniel Cormier talked about it today. Even with all the friction and tension that DC and John Jones has between the two of them, DC said there's no way John Jones is afraid of the fight.
Right.
He said, John Jones is one of the most talented people he's ever seen in the octagon. So for DC to say something like that about John, when their history, they straight up don't like each other.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
They just straight up they don't like each other. So for him to say something like that, first of all, speaks volumes to DC and his character. But I don't think John is scared. Let's be honest. But John's the greatest, in a lot of people's eyes.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's no way. And he's been waiting for this. He's been getting ready for this. He's been putting on the weight. He's been lifting all them weights. So, I don't think he's scared at all. I think it's Dana and John, going back and forth. Maybe it is a money issue, because John did say, show me the money. And I would ask, if that's me, I'm asking for a boatload of money. Scared or not,
Yeah, yeah,
scared or
yeah.
not, I still want all the money because this might be my last fight.
Right,
You
right,
know, this one might be it, win or lose. More so if I lose,
right, right, right.
depending on how I lose, this could be my last one. So I want all the money.
Dude,
You know, so
me too, man.
yeah.
And I did see a couple of comments from John Jones on Twitter saying that, hey, he wants bread for this fight. And I
Oh
mean, not
yeah.
only does he deserve it because, like you said, he's one of the best to ever do it, but this is a terrifying first fight at heavyweight. I mean, this is the most, again, I'll say it again, man, definitely the most dangerous puncher I've ever seen in MMA. And maybe one of the most dangerous punchers I've ever seen in any combat sport, period. I mean, like I said, I've seen people take, shots from Wilder, take shots from,
Tyson.
Tyson and survive. And again, maybe the gloves are a part of it, but who survives this guy's clean shots? I mean, maybe you can take a couple, but eventually he's going to land one and get you out of there. And Stipe, as great as he is, Chris, as great as Stipe Miocic is, they're talking about the greatest heavyweight in history, got laid out with a short left hook, man.
Whew,
Laid out, sent to another dimension,
flat.
brother. Stanky leg.
I know it was bad news bears. It was ugly, and it was so scary, man. You see his leg buckle like that. Thankfully he was unconscious. And Stipe said this. He said he was unconscious, so his knee's okay. Because if not, he might tense up and some tears up in
Right,
there. But
right, right.
he's good to go. But I think the gloves do play a big part. You know what I mean? You got 10-ounce gloves versus them MMA
Yeah.
gloves. It's a huge difference.
I
Huge
agree. Yeah,
difference.
yeah, I agree.
So,
But sometimes I also hear, Chris, and I don't know if you've heard this before. I mean, you're a fighter. You would know better than me. The most I've done is sparring. Sometimes I hear, for example, that wearing headgear, right? Wearing headgear is more damaging because it's almost like the surface area of your head is larger. And I've also
yeah,
heard that wearing gloves is worse than being bare knuckle from
yeah,
certain people. So I mean, it kind of depends on who you talk to, right? And I
for
try to
sure.
keep an open mind, even though I believe those 4-ounce MMA gloves. Obviously, you get hit with one of those, you're going to sleep easier. I still I try to keep an open mind because some of the people that tell me this have credibility. But before I continue, what's kind of your opinion on that kind of thing?
Listen, so I think George, there's a lot of people that are smarter than me, so I'm gonna try to explain this the best way I can. Uh, so, from what I understand, is when you wear the headgear, it makes it bigger, right? Your head's bigger, but it also makes you kind of this whiplashy motion. I guess again, a lot of people smarter
I
than me,
see, I see,
scientists that figure
I
this
see.
out. But they said it makes your head swing more like a pen. I don't know, some pendulum,
Okay, okay,
whatever
that
that
makes
thing,
sense.
whatever the scientific word for that is, and then it's worse for your brain. Um, so I know in like MMA, they're starting to move away from that in terms of when they spar, there's no headgear. But in boxing, you don't see it. Boxing, they're still wearing headgear. Every single professional fighter, high level fighter, Canelo, anybody who's worth mentioning, wears the headgear when they box. And in boxing, you get hit a lot more in the head. So I don't know which way to go with
Yeah,
it. I know I like not wearing headgear because it kind of makes me more tunnel vision when I have it on. And I feel like I can see better when I don't. Sure, it might not be the best for my brain, but that's how I feel. I feel safer. I feel more comfortable.
I hear they
But we don't
spar.
know yet.
I
Yeah.
hear they spar hard at Oyama, man. You're a maniac, man.
And we do spar hard over there. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is. It feels more comfortable without it. Because when we box, we have to wear the headgear. Our coach Dominic doesn't mess around. He makes you put the headgear
And
on.
Hawaiians are
Um,
tough, man. Hawaiians are
man,
tough.
there's a lot of tough people out there, but yeah, Hawaiians we might be known for our heart and stuff, but there's a lot of tough people out there. Don't you know? But yeah, I don't know. I think there's a long way to go on the research, to be
Yeah.
honest, because it's so new. It's an up and coming sport. So even like in terms of training methods, they're still figuring out what's the best way to do it. Because I've heard some good points. Like if you compare it to football, once you hit the season in football, you're not going heavy anymore. You're not hitting every day. You're not going full speed anymore. You're almost going walking through the plays and everything. So it's kind of they're seeing if maybe that's the best method to go, where
Yeah,
you don't
yeah,
spar. You saw Max Holloway against Caterman, no sparring,
yeah,
and he looked the
yeah.
best he
He
ever
looked
looked.
great, man. He looked
Um,
great.
yeah,
Shout
but
out.
then on the flips, oh, go ahead,
Sorry, sorry.
George.
Shout out Slide Tendencies 87, a member of the channel.
Let's
Appreciate you
go.
being in here, brother. Rapstar Box and Knowledge says, respect from London. We have two boxing media channels too.
Woo!
Keep it up. Shout out to you guys. UK Weed is in here. Appreciate you guys being in here. Listen, any comments, questions you guys have for me, for Chris on the topic, drop it in the chat. We will definitely discuss it and keep you guys part of the conversation. We appreciate it. Chris, continue what you were saying. I got another question for you.
Oh man, I forgot. Oh well, because Max has been in sparring and fighting for so long. He started when he was 16, so there isn't going to be anyone he sees in sparring that's going to be any different from what he's already
Right,
saw.
right.
So it makes sense for him not to spar. But then there's new up and coming fighters who are like, oh, I don't need to spar because Max didn't spar. Well, hold on, now it's not the same.
Right.
You haven't been doing this as long. You got to see different things. You got to get used to getting hit. You got to get used to the people throwing their shins at your head.
Yeah.
So it's a little different. And I think it's individualized for everybody and the best methods. And I think that's the job of the coaches to see who's going to respond best to what technique.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's just my opinion. Again, there's a lot of smarter people than me. You know what I mean? That's been in the game longer than me that actually study this.
Yeah.
So we'll call this bro side. This is bro side.
For me, I think light sparring is best. Maybe once in a while, do a hard sparring session just to kind of keep you ready for a fight or give you that fight experience, I guess, or as close as you can get to it. But I feel like, at least for me, the couple times I sparred hard, man, I had a headache for a while afterwards. I couldn't imagine going into a fight with a headache like that, man. That's got to be absolutely horrible, man.
Yeah, you gotta take that CBD, George, when you're done sparring. Because if you had a headache, imagine what the other person felt when you landed that head kick. I've heard stories of that.
Get out
head
of here!
Kick
No, I got a headache because I got a big ass head. Look, this hat doesn't even fit. Chris, I wanted to ask you, man, before we depart from the topic of Stipe versus Ngannou. I think this is an important question. Can Stipe Miocic still beat Francis Ngannou if they run back a third fight? I mean, does he have the chance?
Yeah, I think there's always a chance when you're talking about Stipe. I think he may have learned from this last fight. Maybe coming in leaner and lighter wasn't the best thing to do. So maybe he comes in a little bit heavier. Hopefully the next time they fight, it won't be in the Apex arena, so they're in a bigger cage, gives him more room to move. And then he can work his wrestling. He did say, he felt like Francis was getting a little winded at the end of the first. Personally, I didn't see that. I didn't see Francis getting winded. But that's what he said, and he's in the cage, so he would know best. But he said he was getting a little winded. He derailed from that, his game plan, whatever that may be, for whatever that time was, and it cost him.
Yeah.
But I think there's always a chance, but I think it's got to be sooner than later. Yeah, Stipe getting up there in terms of those years, he's getting wiser.
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, Chris, I think the game plan was, be patient, outbox him, stay on the outside, and I think that all went to hell when he thought he hurt Francis with that right hand and rushed in. That he shouldn't have done that. He left himself wide open for that counter.
I think there might have been a little bit of panic on from Stipe's side too when he kind of got that single leg and he was in there and Francis did all the right things. Hips back, shoelaces in the ground, stuffed the head, and I think it was a little bit of maybe he did learn how to wrestle.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of questioning the game plan, so maybe that's why he went away from it, but we'll never know. What we do know is Francis is the heavyweight champion of the world and knocked Stipe's lights out. So
100%, man, 100%. I'm not sure you saw his outfit in the press conference before the fight, though. He was wearing a hat similar to the one I'm wearing now, so
very similar.
I was
the first person I thought
excited about that. All right.
I gotta say, you wore it.
Thank you. I saw you. I think you voted for me. I appreciate you on that.
I sure did, and I hope Francis doesn't hear that.
Sly Tendencies 87. He left a comment earlier. He says John Jones is not to be underestimated. I agree with that.
No.
I agree with that.
100%. Yes,
I agree
sir.
with that. UK Weed says Derek Lewis bangs pretty hard. And
Yeah, he
yes,
does.
he sure does. He also said fighting with a concussion, LOL. That's when we were talking about having a headache going in there with a
Yep.
fight with a headache. And JJ John Tash Alvarado, appreciate you being in here. He says, damn, came in late. What's
Yes,
up,
sir.
bro? What's up, man? Appreciate you joining us.
What's
Kirky
up?
Ivan.
That's my brother.
Oh, that's your brother.
That's my
Very
brother.
nice. Kirky
Yeah.
Ivan.
What's up? What's up?
Kirky Ivan, my brother, I appreciate you being in here. He says, great show with the clapping hands. And UK Weed says, was epic how Stipe threw a punch while knocked out. Holy shit. He threw a punch while he was knocked out? I didn't even notice that.
No, I didn't see that. I don't think I saw that. I saw him kind of throw his head back, and maybe it looked like a punch when his arm flapped up. But yeah, I didn't see it.
Very cool. And Andre Sanchez, man, with the super chat sticker, man, and the generosity and the amount of $5. Thank you so much for donating to the channel, man.
Thank you.
Just
sir.
so you guys know, anything you guys donate to the channel goes into helping me build the channel and the promotion, which Chris Cross is a part of as a commentator. He's an official Fighters Rep commentator. Chris, it looks like California's slowly opening back up, man. So we're going to be doing fights, I think, sooner than later, brother. We're going to need your expert commentating services again, my man.
Oh, I'm ready to go. I cannot wait. You know, me and you talked about it off air, and I'm excited for the plans you got, George. I'm happy to be a part of it. You know what I mean? It sounds super exciting, and if I'm a fighter, you know, it's going to be super exciting and something to look forward to and something to build my brand. So all those fighters out there, let's get hit on my man George. Let's get this
Chris,
going, and we make some waves.
Let me tell you, Chris. I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to tell all the knuckleheads in here right now. I can't wait for this state to open back up, Chris. We've got hundreds of names that have contacted us to fight in our rule set, which in my opinion is the most exciting rule set in combat sports. You stand and bang. There's no grappling.
Yes, sir.
It's like boxing, but knees and kicks are allowed. If you clinch, they break you up. Amazing rule set. You know, all our fights were crazy exciting. I think you'd agree with that one, Chris, especially at the last event.
Oh, yeah.
And UFC guys, former Bellator guys and UFC guys, BKFC guys, Glory guys. I mean, we've got guys from all the top level promotions that have contacted us to get on the card. I cannot wait, man, to get this going.
Oh,
again.
sounds exciting.
Big shout out to Kirky Ivan, a member of the channel, loyal member of the channel, an official knucklehead, dropping a €5 donation in the chat, man. Much appreciated, Ivan.
Ooh.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So, Chris, what were your thoughts on the card besides, you know, Miocic and Ngannou? What did you think about the rest of the card? Were there any standouts for you on the card?
I mean, Vicente Luque for sure. You know what I mean? We talked about that very briefly on the last show. And that fight was crazy because I think T. Wood rocked Vicente Luque, but Luque put him, you know, he caught T. Wood in that Darce choke, and it was kind of game over. But he's definitely shown, you know, he's not to be messed with. And then on the flip side of that, T. Wood, man, I don't know where he goes from here, to be honest, you know, because like we said last week, he lost quite a few rounds in a row, not just fights, rounds consecutively. So it's been a while since he's even won a round. So I don't know what happens. Maybe he goes over to Bellator. Maybe he goes over to one. So we'll see. But yeah, Vicente Luque definitely stood out. Sean O'Malley, he definitely can't overlook him.
No, you can't. No, you can't. He won't let you.
No, definitely not with that hair. So
Skittles, taste the rainbow, bro.
He's got to be careful, my boy. I forgot the 6'9" guy is out there with the same hairdo. You guys don't have to fight about that. But no, you can't overlook him. He came close to maybe making the mistake of the night when he dropped
Thomas Almeida.
man, Almeida. Yeah, when he dropped Almeida and he thought he had a walk-off, but he didn't. Um, so, I think DC brought up a good point. You have to create those moments when you're at the big show. And O'Malley said also, and to speak to that he's only got 15 minutes to put on a show in there. And he's going to do what he can. I think that was his attempt to do that. And even so, he still put on a big show. The only thing I'd say about my man Sugar Sean, and listen, all respect to you, Sugar Sean, and I think this is maybe the MMA community's opinion. You got to accept the loss against
Oh
Cheeto.
man,
Lost,
I was gonna say that's your teammate Cheeto Vera out of Team Oyama, man. How do you feel about that?
I think that's the MMA community kind of opinion is you got to accept the loss and it's reality. But he's shown that he's moved on. I think he's moved on from it. Maybe our fan base and the community hasn't, but he has. Whether it's he sees it as a loss or a freak accident, he's moved on and he put on a show.
Did you see when Bruce Buffer was announcing his record and he threw like a sign for like an O as in I'm still undefeated when he was reading his record out?
Yeah, but you're not. So It is what it is. He like I said, he accepted it as a loss or a win. Whatever it is, he's accepted whatever that is in his eyes.
Yeah.
And he's moved on. And he's now putting on a show and making his run to get to the top again. Now, if they run into each other again, I'd love to see it. But yeah, you lost.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. He lost. I mean, a lot of people say it's a fluke, right? And I had a neighbor who was trying to kind of I won't say minimize it. I have a neighbor who's awesome. He loves Sean O'Malley, but he was trying to describe that win that Cheeto Vera had against him as such a fluke or a one-off that he understands Sean O'Malley's mentality, and I absolutely respect that interpretation. But my interpretation and my response to that was, coincidentally, Chris, somebody who fought over the weekend, right? In boxing, we had Dillian White fight Alexander Povetkin. His career was on the line here, Chris. I mean, if Dillian White would have lost to Alexander Povetkin again twice in a row, he would have perhaps forever lost his mandatory position with the WBC and maybe never came back to where he was,
Yep.
But my point is that, in that first Dillian White versus Alexander Povetkin fight, Chris, Dillian White's just beating the dog shit out of Povetkin. And, I think he drops him twice.
Yeah.
Coming, to the end of the fight. Out of nowhere. I mean, Povetkin was, he's a clever guy. He was setting up Dillian White and hitting him a lot of left hands to the body. But he had been dropped twice and looked like he was out. He was just about ready to get, finished. And he lands, Chris, nothing short of a picture-perfect uppercut that may be one of the knockouts of 2020. One of the knockouts of 2020.
Yeah. 22.
Right, and so when a fighter, lands a lucky shot that ends the fight, I mean, whether it was lucky or not, they did intend to land that shot. You know what I mean? So I can't really count it as a fluke the way, a lot of people do. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, if you look back to it's happened before with Brent Primus and Michael Chandler. It's the same exact kick. It shuts off that perennial nerve. Yeah. I think that's what it's called. Again, not the smartest guy in the room.
Come on, stop downplaying your intelligence, Chris. You knew the name of it, and I didn't, brother.
I made it up. I made that up. So it is what. I made that thing up. But yeah, it's is it coincidence that Brent was training under Coach Collins, same team as Cheeto, and the same results?
There you go.
I don't know.
There you go.
Could be, but it's literally the same thing. The calf kick shut off the nerve, ankle didn't work, and it turns out to be a win. I think it's very similar to in other sports a Hail Mary,
right,
last second full court shot. You know what I mean? they're doing it with every intention to make the shot or score the touchdown. Maybe the chances aren't so high, but if it happens, and it's still a loss. But nothing to take away from Sugar Sean. He's still doing his thing. That dude was tough. The dude that he
Yeah.
fought. So he got up from that first one, and it took a lot to put him out. I mean, Herb Dean tried to save him, but he landed that big one, and it
My
was a night over
goodness.
for him.
My
So
goodness. And the way he just, I mean, for me, the crazy part was the way he just like casually strolled up on the guy
yeah,
as he was on
yeah,
the ground and finished. I mean, he was like an executioner going to make the kill,
it was. It was like he was like, I guess I gotta do this. So, because I think the first time Herb didn't stop
Right,
it, so
right.
Sugar Sean's eyes, it's like, I guess I gotta hit you one last time. So I'm glad that his opponent was able to get up and walk out of there on his own
Yeah,
will.
yeah.
But man, it was definitely one of the moments of the night.
Yeah, and you also mentioned Vicente Luque, man, a guy who's kind of been at or near the top of the division for a very long time, and you also said about Tyron Woodley, Chris. I mean,
Hmm.
I think I know the answer to what happens to Tyron Woodley next. Unfortunately,
Hmm.
based on what Dana
Yeah,
White said in the press conference, I don't know if you heard it.
I
But
did.
yeah, he
Yeah,
said, 39 years old, you've lost 4 fights in a row.
doesn't look
Yeah,
good.
where do we go at this point? You know what I mean? It's time. I mean, it's sad, but I also understand that the UFC kind of has to make way for the younger guys, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. And it's not like he's not going to have options. He's not going because you're still Tyron Woodley,
Yeah,
arguably one of the better welterweight champions that's ever held the belt. So it's not like he's not going to have options. There's going to be options out there for him to make money, whether it's one Bellator, or maybe he decides he doesn't want to fight anymore and he wants to pursue this rapping career. He has options, which is a
yeah,
good thing because I think a lot of people kind of have this vision of a fighter that as soon as they get to the big show, it's like, oh man, he made it and he's set. I mean, that's not always true because a lot of times you don't get to the upper echelon of the sport, and then you kind of when you get let go or Father Time comes tapping on your shoulder, it's like you don't have too many options. So T Wood is in the other boat where he's got all these
yeah.
options. He can go do one. He can go do all these other venues and things like that and still be successful because anybody who gets to the championship level and whatever they do, they'll probably be successful because they show that work ethic. So yeah, I think he'll be fine. Unfortunately, I think his run in the UFC might be over, but like I said, we'll see him again.
For sure. John Wick in the chat, appreciate you being in here, brother. He says, I'm late, but here we're glad you joined us, man. We love everybody in Knucklehead Nation. It's important that you guys join us. We're going to be doing this, Chris, just about every
Yes,
just
sir.
about every Monday, man. We're going to react to what happened with the fights,
Yeah.
and we're going to predict upcoming fights. You know what I mean? That's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And another one I kind of wanted to react to, switching gears here a little bit from MMA to boxing, is, as I mentioned earlier, Dillian White
Right.
redeeming himself after
Saving his
after
career.
being knocked out in 2020, redeeming himself with his very own knockout, Chris.
Knockout.
You
Yeah,
are a
he looked
you
great.
are a pro fighter. Nobody knows what this grind is like more than you, brother. I mean, tell me if you're Dillian White, what's going through your mind when you know that this next fight could be make or break?
Well, going into the fight, it's a lot of pressure. I mean, I put a lot of pressure on myself now, and I'm nowhere near Dillian White's, success and level. But for him to know, man, my career is on the line here. It's a lot of pressure to deal with. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And I think he did a good job of it. Maybe he performs under pressure. He might be that diamond. He needs the pressure.
yeah,
But once I get that win, man, I'm sure it's such a relief for that guy. He gets the knockout, and it's like, thank goodness, because now he can still feed it. You got to put the food on the table for the family. So I think for him, it's a huge relief. And he did great. He looked unbelievable. He was cracking Povetkin with body shots, and he dropped it. He looked
yeah,
great. He
yeah.
looked unbelievable. He looks like a different fighter from but
For
We'll see.
sure, for sure. Before I go on, Chris, Gus Fring says, does Woodley have one foot in MMA and the other one in his other ventures?
Uh, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, from from an outside perspective and as a fan, it looks like it. You know, he's got the rap thing going on, and there's a bunch of other things. And of all the sports that are out there, I think MMA is one you cannot do that because it has some pretty severe consequences when you are 1 foot in, 1 foot out. So, if he decides he wants to continue, I hope he's all in
Yeah.
and he puts all his heart into it. But if not, maybe it's time. Like we said, Father Time is
Right,
undefeated.
right.
That's the only one in the world
Well,
undefeated.
I am
So,
happy for Woodley though that he does have all these other ventures. It's not every fighter that gets that. As me and you know, Chris, that's a very hard thing to come across, and I hope more people are able to make more of their career. You know what I mean? The way Woodley has. Um, John Wick says John Jones ain't gonna fight Francis. It's like Dana said, he can have this fight. It's a matter of does he really want to fight? He don't want the next. He don't want to be the next victim. So John Wick is in here. He believes that John Jones does not want this fight with Francis Ngannou.
that's tough to say. That one is tough to say. I think John
Yeah,
wants it. Well, DC said it. DC's the one who said. John's not afraid. I mean, John's John for a
yeah,
reason.
yeah,
He wants to be the greatest to ever do it. And what other way to do that and prove that you're the greatest to ever do it than, oh my God, Colin Francis is so scary, and John goes in and dominates
yeah.
him. Either way, we get to have a good fight, a fun fight, and we see what happens. I think it happens. I think it happens, John. Now don't come over here and John Wick me, but I think it happens, my friend. I think you're wrong.
Yeah, yeah. And Gus Fring's following up. He says, I think John Jones can take on Francis. The question is whether the UFC will pay him. I think that the UFC would be willing to pay John Jones good money for this fight because John Jones obviously is considered one of the greatest of all time. And I think a fight between him and an international star, because let's not make any mistake here. Francis Ngannou is an international star now. African origin from Cameroon, went through, so he's going to have all that support, especially the way he's aligned himself with Adesanya and Kamaru Usman. He's going to have the continent of Africa behind him. He's going to have the French behind him as well, where he kind of, began and honed his craft. And he's got a ton of fans here too. I mean, everywhere. Who doesn't love to see a knockout like that? And I think the intrigue, Chris, between the ridiculous technique of John Jones moving up for the first time to heavyweight, taking on an absolute destroyer, and Francis Ngannou is just going to amount to too much money for the UFC not to pay big money for that fight. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely, and especially with crowds coming back, they're going to be allowed to have fans in the venue. It's going to be too much for Uncle Dana to turn down, So looking at it from the business perspective, there's no reason not to do
Chris
it.
Masvidal
Even
versus Kamaru
Ooh.
Usman Part 2 in my
Ooh.
motherland of Florida. They're saying that the tickets, 15,000 pre-sale tickets sold out in almost record time, my brother.
Yeah. I think it shows everybody wants to come back. Everybody's ready to, get back out to the games and fights and get whatever that is. But what a fight. You know what I mean? And I don't want to, maybe we get your opinion on that one a little bit later. But yeah, I think it speaks to everybody's, they want to get back to regular life. And if that's one step towards it.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
And on the boxing front, Chris, on the boxing front, Canelo Alvarez, my understanding, in just 2 days of pre-sale, sold all, I guess, 40,000 pre-sale tickets for his fight on May 8th against Billy Joe Saunders, breaking all kinds of records. I mean, there's no way the 60,000 seats at the AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, are going to last until May 8th, brother.
Yeah.
That's not happening.
and that is just another shot at the writer who said it wasn't going to sell. So there you go.
I cannot believe somebody actually believed that. Um,
I wonder if he took it down. I hope he
he
took it
should
down.
have. He should have. Back
I hope
back
so.
to the boxing front real quick, Chris and Dillian White. This is a topic that I wanted to discuss with you. To kind of let you guys into my mind as a promoter, and why I get so annoyed with the way American boxing promoters have been doing things versus guys like Eddie Hearn, right? And the stark difference for me, right, is we had Anthony Joshua. He loses to Andy Ruiz in the first fight, Chris. He runs it back. Everybody's on their edge of their seat. They want to watch this guy redeem himself. They get their redemption story. The same thing just happened with Dillian White, and once again, courtesy of Eddie Hearn, where Dillian White fulfilled the ultimate redemption story. Chris, I gotta ask you, man. In our case here in the States, Andy Ruiz loses after beating Anthony Joshua, loses to him. Instead of coming back, right, throwing himself right back into the fire, into a risky fight, and giving us the intrigue and the suspense of a potential redemption story, we get a 40-something-year-old or late 30s, way over the hill. As much as I respect him, I respect the hell out of him. Chris Arreola.
Of course.
Chris Arreola, man. Listen, Chris, in my opinion, Andy Ruiz and Chris Arreola do not belong in the ring together. It's not even a fair fight.
No.
I wanted your thoughts on that, and obviously I don't want to put you in any uncomfortable situation, but just for me, this fight doesn't sit right in my soul. I needed to hear what you have to say about this. And by the way, shout out to George Estrada, a real knucklehead in the chat, and James2774. We'll get to you guys in a second.
Yes, sir. But no, I'll leave it as he definitely does not. I won't say definitely does not. That's disrespectful. I don't think, in my opinion, he belongs in the same ring as Andy Ruiz. I mean, maybe they're just throwing one out there for Ruiz to start building back up to, maybe get the trilogy. But yeah, I'll leave it as I don't think it's going to be a very interesting, entertaining fight. I think he gets dominated, and that's what happens.
And just so everybody knows, where I'm coming from, Chris Arreola, 40 years old now, way past his prime. And in his last 10 fights, he's lost 4 times, he's had a draw, and he's had a no contest. As much as and he's coming off of a loss to Adam Konaski, who is himself, just got beat by Robert Helenius. So as much as I respect Chris Arreola, because he's an OG of the boxing game, and he represents for California, and he's, La Raza, and I got love for La Raza big time. And, he's just a Mexican heavyweight warrior, and I wish he would have won a heavyweight title. At 40 years old, it's not the ideal time for Chris Arreola to fight a priming Andy Ruiz. That's my opinion.
And not only a priming Andy Ruiz, a determined and motivated Andy
like
Ruiz.
never before. Like never before.
Yeah. Exactly. You've never seen Ruiz like this. And we keep, it's a recurring topic, Father Time undefeated. And, I think Chris has gotten the tap on the shoulder, and it's unfortunate that they put him in this situation. But as a fighter, you don't turn down an opportunity.
There's too much money there,
I mean?
too,
So,
man. There's too much money in that fight. And it's also, if he beats Andy Ruiz, which in my opinion is probably, a snowball's chance in the afterlife. If he does that, he's back in the title mix, which is crazy.
Yeah, and then I think it gets worse for him, though. I think best case scenario, you lose to Andy Ruiz because you get back in that title mix. We're talking about some killers, man.
Yeah.
and you go from a snowball's chance in the underworld to I don't know what's after that. I
A,
can't even
sno-
think of
a,
something
sno-
after that.
a snowflake's chance in Satan's ass.
Oh, that
There you
works too. I
go.
mean, that was okay. I didn't know we could say that, but yeah, we'll go with that.
Uh,
Snowflakes chance and
Hey,
Satan's
I just
ass.
came up with it. Hope you guys like it. James2774 says, I still think Derek Lewis has the best chance right now to again beat an arguably much improved Ngannou.
Yeah, because his one punch knockout.
Right,
You know,
right.
I think he's got the same. It's the same power we're talking about. Either one of those guys lands, and it's sleepy time. It's time to go
Right,
sleep.
right. But I think if Ngannou just is patient and calm, like the most dangerous Ngannou in the universe, and keeps Lewis, let's not forget Ngannou's 83-inch reach here, guys. I think he keeps
Yep.
Lewis at the end of that jab, which is probably, I mean, if his hardest punch is a Ford Focus, that jab, Chris, has got to be a Toyota Prius, my brother. That jab is a
Ooh, don't
Toyota
come
Prius,
on.
bro.
Don't do Toyota like that. Now I got a Tacoma. Don't do Toyota like
Yeah,
that.
but Tacoma is a manly. I mean, I'm talking about a Prius. Come on, let me slide with the Prius, brother.
Yeah, but it's economically
You're right.
efficient.
You're right. Well, so is the jab though from long distance, right?
You're
So,
right.
so
You're
I
right.
think
Yeah, yeah.
we'll stick to the Prius, but
We'll go
I
with
think
Prius.
I
We'll
think
go
he
with
could
Prius.
do that and win the fight, But who knows? That would be a good fight to watch.
I think so too. But I mean, Derek Lewis has shown he gets tired in later rounds. You know what I mean? So, but his power still translates over to the
Yeah,
later rounds. But I think calm Francis, does exactly what you just said. Sticks the jab out there, takes him into those later rounds, and then it maybe a head kick. Maybe that one might be the head kick knockout for Francis that we've
for
been waiting
sure.
for. So we'll see.
Youngster,
Hopefully, we get to see it.
youngster 1320. He's back in here. Chris Cross. He says, I'm sorry. I'm back, brother. Greetings from Pomona, California. California. Shout out to Pomona. He says, but to all Canelo haters, I got Venmo and Cash App ready to put y'all money up, or are y'all to shuck? I'm cash ready on IG. Youngster
Yeah,
323,
yeah.
and he donated $10 to the super chat. So I appreciate your generosity,
That's well.
youngster.
Thank you.
By the way, youngster, when we start the fights again at FightersRep, man, definitely come through if you're in Pomona, man. I think you'd love what we're going to be doing. And obviously,
For sure.
all the official knuckleheads, by joining the channel for just $5 a month and clicking that join button below, you'll have access to the Fighters Rep live events. Actually, Chris, that's the only way moving forward people will be able to watch the events, is by having a membership on the channel, which is $5 a month, and they can cancel anytime. And of course, we'll end up uploading most, if not all, of the fights onto the YouTube channel afterwards.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, Francis Ngannou, Derek Lewis, Chris, an interesting matchup, man. An interesting matchup.
Yeah, but I think the one everybody wants to see is Johnny
Yeah,
Bones.
yeah.
Everybody wants that one. They got to ride the momentum of their little war and their Twitter beef, and it's what's in the media. It's what's going to sell tickets. It's what's going to make Uncle Dana the money. So I think that one happens first, and then who knows? Even Derek Lewis against John Jones would be fun. So the win, maybe he gets the winner of the two.
Yeah, yeah. Which one do you think happens next, man?
I want to go with John because Francis wants John.
Yeah.
Francis wants John. Francis said in his interview, July and August is right around the corner. He's ready to go. And that, I mean, sign me up for that because I think International Fight Week is usually in July, right? So I think that'd be a cool fight to have in July, International Fight Week, the main event, headline the three events that they usually do. And, Francis being an international superstar like we talked about is perfect for International Fight Week. So, hopefully they make that happen. And if they do make it happen, Uncle Dana, I'll take 10%.
Chris, Ngannou's got fucking balls, man. I mean, I gotta just say it. Ngannou's got balls to go in there, because he's still, for MMA, he's still relatively green, man, if we're being honest with ourselves. To go in there, fight Stipe, fight the people he's fought, and want John Jones and want the GOAT. I mean, for him to want the GOAT, for
Yep.
me, it just shows a level of confidence that, is just, it's hard to deny, man. I wouldn't, I wonder who'd be the favorite in that fight, man. Who do you think would win that fight if that fight happened?
Yeah, it's hard to go against
And that's
John.
actually what
Just giving
and
his
that's
record.
actually what James2774 just asked. He says, "How do you see Ngannou Jones play out if it happens? How could Jones hurt Ngannou? What do you think, Chris?"
I mean, I think assuming that we're back to a little bit of normalcy there, and we got the bigger cage, John has those long legs, and I think he stays on the outside and plays, that oblique kick that's always been so effective for John. He messes with that, and he's going to wear down the legs of Francis. And if Francis really was getting winded after the first against Stipe, it'll be interesting to see how he handles John. I think John would be a little bit more active, especially with his legs in the first, than Stipe was. Because Stipe did land some leg kicks, um, but I see John being a little bit more active than Stipe, making Francis work a little bit more. Again, in that bigger cage, John will have a lot more space to kind of touch, move. So maybe he gets a little bit winded. But again, just Francis's power is out of this
Man,
world. So
man, man.
If he touches John, it's bad news. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's hard to predict. And if it does happen, I'm sure you and I will sit down and talk about it. And I'll go do some more research and have some better answers. But I think John would tire out Francis. He's got a great camp behind him. His fight IQ's off the charts. So is everybody in his camp. So, I see it touching, moving, winding Francis, getting him tired through the fight, dragging him into the later rounds. I think Francis still has a lot to prove in terms of whether he can handle the deep waters in those later
Yeah.
rounds. So I think we get that answer against John Jones. But
Yeah.
we'll see what
Yeah,
happens. We will see what
Gus
happens.
Fring is in here kind of echoing what you're saying in here, Chris. He says, I got John Jones 100%. He says he won't hurt him. He will pick him apart. And I think if John
Yeah.
Jones wins that fight, that's the way he's going to do it. But the problem for me is, I thought John Jones looked less than what he usually looks like in his fights against Thiago Santos, Dominic Reyes, guys that were around his size, guys that had some power, guys that were not afraid and willing to throw back. And I
Yeah.
could see Francis Ngannou, winging shots at John Jones, and John Jones just not being able to get away. I mean, at the same time, he's got a long reach, like you said. I think he would use his kicks a lot. It'd be a very
Yep.
interesting fight to watch. But another thing I will say though, Chris, that's a hell of a fight to go in, to the heavyweight division with as your first fight. I mean, that is just that's just messed up, man.
Ah,
That's messed up.
I mean, I know that's where the money is,
Yeah,
but if I'm John, I'd like to fight one time at
yeah,
heavyweight against somebody who's not Francis to see what the translate the power translate or the power at that level. Granted, he's fought some big guys, but the weight will be different, obviously, at heavyweight. So his wrestling may not be as effective. We don't know. There's a lot of questions to answer for John. So if I'm John, personally, I'm asking for maybe one fight at heavyweight just to kind of feel out the
yeah,
waters there.
yeah.
But John knows John best. So, and if John feels he's ready, I'm sure he's sparred with heavyweights at Jackson. So if John feels he's ready, I'm not going to be the one to be like, no, don't do it because I want to see you fight that fight.
Yeah, yeah. Youngster 1320 says, "What are your thoughts on Frank Sanchez? Are people looking past him in the heavyweight division?" Chris, are you familiar with Frank at all?
Don't the youngster 1320 comes in hot, so don't be upset with me. But I might be one of the people that's looking past him in the heavyweight division. Now I'm sorry.
I see.
So
I see.
yeah,
I see.
yeah,
He's a Cuban. He's a Cuban heavyweight boxer. He holds the WBO NABO title according to to Wikipedia. You know, I'm familiar with him. He trains with Eddie Reynoso, I believe, right? So for me, you know, I don't know if people are looking past him. I think if you know anything about boxing,
Yeah.
you know that when a guy, especially at this point, goes to Eddie Reynoso, they are serious as coronavirus when
Yeah.
it comes.
That's pretty
Yeah,
serious. That is pretty
they're
serious.
serious as purple tear, California purple tear,
Yeesh.
coronavirus, brother, about their boxing career.
Yeah, yeah,
And you know, I don't think that's a guy that can be slept on. Again, especially with that Cuban amateur background, Chris. As
yeah.
you know, I'm from Miami, Florida, man. I grew up around a lot of Cubans. I understand. I'm a big fan of boxing, a big fan of Cuban boxers. They got a fantastic amateur pedigree. And to be able to layer that with some Eddie Reynoso, man, that's a hell of a
Yeah.
combination, brother.
Oh yeah, 100%. I just think the heavyweight kind of division in boxing right now is dominated by that big
Yeah,
three of
yeah,
names that we talk
yeah,
about, and to the general public, that's really where all the fights are kind of, you know, orbiting around. Is those three
yeah.
guys? The first one being Tyson Fury and Joshua. So
For sure,
you
for
know
sure. Guys, if you haven't
that's
already, like, comment, subscribe, join the channel. Follow me and Chris at our Instagram handles right below our big ass heads. And
it's not that big.
yeah, you're right. But mine is. Chris, we've been on here over an hour, man. Our
Yep.
hour is up now. I wanted to ask you one thing, though, before we cut out here.
Okay.
Dillian White, you know, you mentioned the big three, you know.
Yeah.
But who is the big three now? Who's the big three now? Because, you know, Wilder, obviously coming off the loss with Fury, we don't know who
Yeah.
he's fighting or when he's fighting. Is he going to be the same guy? Dillian White coming off a big win and being, I would imagine, reinstated as the WBC mandatory and WBC interim heavyweight champion. Who's the big three at this point? Or is it a big four or a big five? What do you think?
I still think it's the big three. I still think obviously it's Fury. Fury being number one. Anthony Joshua because he's fighting Fury, and I still think Deontay Wilder is pretty pertinent in that division. You know, he did lose to Tyson Fury. He looked pretty bad. He's got all the excuses in the world, but I don't think you count out Wilder yet because you want to talk about somebody who's green in Francis and MMA. Deontay Wilder got into boxing
Yeah,
super late.
yeah.
You know, compared to all these other guys who do it as soon as they can start walking. So I think the big three, especially to the general public, especially to the big fight, you know, if we're talking about numbers to the promoters and who's going to make the most money, which you and I both talk about, boxing is about the
Yeah.
money. I think it's still Deontay Wilder, it's Tyson Fury, it's still Anthony Joshua. Uh, we'll see what happens after, you know, Joshua and Fury. Uh, Personally, I think Fury is going to win now, no problem. But yeah, for me, that's still the big three. We'll see. Maybe Andy Ruiz gets thrown back in there, Dillian White again. But it's tough for me to throw Dillian White in there just because, like we said, you know, he's fighting for his career. He was kind of on
Yeah,
that
yeah.
last chance. So maybe one more big win, we start talking about Dillian White again. You know,
Yeah.
but yeah,
James 2774, he's asking, you know, I wanted to end the show, but I don't want to leave anyone hanging. He says,
yeah.
how do you think Wilder is mentally affected now? A tune-up fight for confidence for him?
Yeah. I think so. I think he kind of follows that same path as Ruiz. You know, they give him somebody to as a tune-up fight, get him his confidence back. You know, see how his new camp is. With his, obviously he changed camps, so we'll see how that affects him and what kind of impact that has on him. But I think that's the route you have to go with him. Give him a tune-up fight, get him his confidence back, and you know, we'll throw him back in there. Maybe Tyson Fury again or Anthony Joshua. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm interested to see what happens to Wilder. You know, I lost a lot of respect for him, Chris, with all the excuse with the
Yeah.
Fury thing. You know, I was a fan of Wilder until all that stuff.
Yeah.
I lost a lot of respect. This.
It's hard not to be when you hear him on the
Yeah,
interviews and
that's
stuff,
a
right?
lot of
You know,
for me.
but
That's a lot of bullshit. But knuckleheads,
it wasn't even good
no,
excuses. It wasn't
they
even
were
good. It was
bad.
my costume was
Yeah,
too
they were
heavy. Like, come
bad,
on.
man. They were bad. Knuckleheads, appreciate
So
you joining me and pro fighter and fighters rep commentator Chris Cross. We're gonna be doing this every Monday night. Chris, we do have a Carl Frampton Jamal Herring fight coming up this Saturday.
yep.
If before we log out here, you want to give us your prediction on that?
Uh, that one's tough for me. I think I'll go with
Yeah,
Jamal. Um, but threw me. You threw me a curveball
I
here. I
did. I
wasn't ready
did.
for this one.
I wanted to keep you on your
Um,
toes.
and you did. Uh,
It's a tough one.
but
It's a
yeah,
tough one.
I don't know. I definitely think it's a tough. I mean, most of the fights we're going to talk about here
Yeah,
are
yeah.
tough ones. But at the end of the day, we got to do what we're here to do and make a prediction. So I'll go with Jamal Herring.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. I think Frampton has seen,
Better
better
days.
days. But we'll see. I mean, Herring is not a spring chicken either. It should be a good one. I also think, Frampton is really short. So I don't think that's going to help him
Yeah.
for this fight. But Knuckleheads, appreciate you guys joining us. Again, be sure to follow, subscribe,
Yep.
man, and hopefully this state opens up soon and we can bring you guys some fights. Until next time,
Can't wait.
we'll see you guys again live on Saturday, live on Monday with Chris. But we'll be continuing to drop content every day, so stay tuned. Have a great night.